Hello and welcome back to Savvy Sprocket. Today is a wonderfully warm fall day and I'm going to be putting some time in down here at my grandfather's shop. Nestled inside here are two of his Ford tractors. Unfortunately, neither of which are currently running at the moment. They both have a couple electrical issues on it. On the left is a 1984 Ford 4610 with a loader on front of it, and next to it is a smaller 1973 Ford 3000. These are two tractors that my grandfather has owned for years and used around his property. The smaller guy here has been the dedicated field mowing machine, and the 4610 over here, actually my grandfather did purchase new back when, I'm gonna guess 84, 85, and has had it ever since. It served a good life helping him when he was running his sawmill operation back in the day, but since then has just been an extra helping hands around the property. The Ford 3000 is the tractor that has been running most recently. We were able to mow with it at the start of the summer, however it quit on us during that and got pushed into the shop and has been sitting since. This unit has always had an interesting electrical problem that has left my grandfather stranded a couple times. He was actually just telling me a story the other day. That was the fourth time he had to walk back from the center of town after this thing just quit on him. Has never dug into it to really discover the core of the problem, because essentially when it happens, you let it sit for a bit, things cool back down, and it'll fire up and run for another day. However, this time it doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm going to pop it open, check fluids, check the electrical voltage, and see where we're at, and start troubleshooting to hopefully get this thing fixed long term. Start by checking the voltage on the battery. 12.87, 12.9 volts. That looks decent. At first glance, everything does look connected and in place correctly still, so why don't I climb up in it, hit the key, and see what we get at this point. We have power on the dash. Give it a little choke and give it some contact. Starter seems to be spinning over there, but not engaging on the flywheel. Let's give it another shot. This tractor has done that before, however, typically you can get it to kind of kick past that and turn the engine over. So let's see if we can get it there. I was able to get the starter to engage by putting the tractor in gear and rocking it a little bit to move the gearing slightly, and the starter did seem to like that. It did engage and start turning the engine over. Sounds slightly weak, however the battery voltage doesn't drop too much, so I'm wondering now if potentially we're not getting spark. So I'm going to grab a spark plug tester, get that in line on cylinder number 1, and turn it over a little bit more and see if we are getting any spark. Alright, with the spark tester in line on cylinder number 1, I'm going to jump back in and turn over a couple times. And why don't you guys keep an eye on the light and see if we're getting any spark. I'm not seeing anything there. So that's too bad. Looks like we are not getting any spark in cylinder number 1, which tells us that there's something either wrong with the coil itself or the distributor is not sending the power correctly. So first thing, I'm going to check the input lead on the coil to make sure we're still getting 12 volts on the input side of that, and then I'll dive into the distributor and see if anything's off inside there. So key in the on position, I am getting 12.4 volts to the positive side of the coil, so there is juice coming into the coil at least. So now that I know that there is power coming in to the coil on the positive lead, the next step to check is I'm going to throw just a test light onto the trigger line that feeds out of the distributor, because that's going to tell us basically if I have a cycling light there, then we are getting the correct ignition signal coming from the distributor. If I do not get that correct signal though, then that's going to tell us that basically the problem is before the coil, and I'm going to look up to the distributor, which the cap and leads are all rather new, which leads me to believe that either the points inside are getting stuck and they're not cycling correctly, or there's an issue with the condenser. So let's test that trigger lead and see which direction we should go. Well, that's news. So as you can see, the light on the test lead there stayed steady, which indicates we don't have a pulsating signal coming into the coil. So most likely our problem is going to be within the distributor. I had popped that open previously. The cap itself is newer, the leads are newer. It all looked basically fine in there, which leads me to guess that possibly the condenser that is inside that particular distributor is our issue. And I do have a spare condenser, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pop that all back out, replace it with a new condenser, put it back together, and then see what we have. All right, so the old condenser has been pulled. I put that new one back in, reassembled everything as is, and let's give it another test fire. So now that the 3000's running, I'm gonna go park it, grab some lunch, then head back down, and I will continue work on the 4610 here. Slightly different will it start here, given this is a diesel engine compared to the gas on the 3000, but should be interesting either way, so stay tuned. Just finished up lunch and I'm back down in the shop, and it is time to start work on the 4610. As I mentioned, this is a 1984 that my grandfather actually has owned since new. Single owner tractor that he has always maintained and used it quite a bit. However, it unfortunately has been sitting for a handful of years, as he hasn't really been able to do much work on it himself anymore. But the discussions that we've had is he believes The reason that it's not starting and running at this point is because of one of the safety switches that it has in line of the ignition. Basically, there's a safety switch down in the transmission itself that checks just to make sure it's not in gear before you start it, so it doesn't, lurch forward the second you start it. So that's going to be my first check to try to get this thing running again. However, before I do that, I'm just going to run around and just check all the fluids on it, just to make sure it's okay, make sure we have some oil in there, just so if it does kick off that we're not going to be running low on anything. So let's check the engine oil first. Engine oil looks all right. Battery voltage is reading good. Take a look at the antifreeze. Seems to have antifreeze right up to the top there. I just went ahead and turned the fuel on, as we keep that off when this thing is sitting around, just because the injection pump does have a bit of a leak to it that does drip out unless the tank is closed off. Now, the last thing I want to check is the transmission level, which is also the hydraulic fluid in this tractor. It's all the same reservoir, and there's a dipstick right there that we can check it with. Fluid level looks okay. All right, with all the fluids checked, let's climb up in this thing and see what we get. Got a few lights on the dash. Contact. Oh. Contact. When I hit the ignition switch, I have no life to anything. Starter doesn't kick over or anything. The only thing that happens is the lights in the dash dim. I'm gonna go crawl around and check out the wiring a little bit and see if I can find anything strange right off the bat. Hopefully we'll see, but maybe I'll get lucky on this one. So I did just discover down near the starter here, there was a really loose line. Basically the ignition line that plugs into the top of the starter in the solenoid itself was really loose, and just tapping it, actually it kind of came right out. So I took a look at that connection, tightened up the tongs just a little bit and plugged it back in, and I'm gonna jump back up in the cab and just see if that'll do the trick. Contact. So there you have it. I lucked out a little bit on the 4610 here. It ended up being just that ignition line was not fully seated in the starter. I turned it over and it started right up like it had ran fine just last week. Like I said, this thing has not run in a handful of years. Just time and other responsibilities kind of got the best of the family, but it is running again. Nothing is crazy leaking. The gears shifted fine. The hydraulics don't seem to be functioning. However, I don't have a ton of experience on this tractor. I'm not totally sure if it's operator error. I don't know possibly how to engage them correctly, or if those might be having an issue. We did check the fluid, before, so there should be fluid in there. However, I'm gonna have to talk around and see about looking at those further. But for now, it is now a running in movable tractor again. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up here now that we not only have one running but two successfully running tractors. Lots of learning happened on the Ford 3000, and I got a little bit lucky on the larger 4610. However, they're both functional, they're both running and driving, and I'd like to think that's pretty successful. I'm happy with the progress. If you made it this far in the video, I want to thank you for watching and supporting my channel. If you like this type of mechanical content where I learn and tinker and progress on these older machines, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'll have more old stuff coming and also new stuff if you like that too. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.